Well, good afternoon, West Ham fans. Let's talk about the club's just released set of accounts for last season. Everybody, Russ and the West Ham Network. Hope you're safe and well. So, West Ham have just released their set of accounts for the previous season, for the 22-23 season, up until the 31st of May 2023. That's key to say that as well, because that's an important milestone, so to speak. Now, Sean Wheaton, bless him, has been through it all, dissected it, crunched the numbers, condensed it, and I'm now taking his report, condensing it for you and giving you the key facts, the key bits of information. And in terms of the sort of main headlines, the first one is the turnover. So last season, we turned over £236.7 million, which is a 16% decrease from the previous season, which actually was a club record of 252.7 million. Don't forget, in the 21-22 season, we were playing in the Europa League, and obviously 22-23 we played in the conference. It represents about 7%, 6.5% decrease year on year from the record-breaking season. There's many factors, and the main one of why there's been a decrease is the final league position. Obviously, it's believed to be around, I think it's about £500,000 per sorry, it's £2 million rather per space. So obviously 7th compared to 14th, that's 7 places down. That should be about 14 million quid, and we're down 16 million quid. So so that's where the majority of it comes. But there has been some decreases in other areas as well. Less TV games because of our league position. We appeared in 2 less TV games in the previous year. And because we finished 14th, not only did we get the Premier League money, but also the reduction of the TV money in terms of how it's reduced. Obviously, we've got we were playing in the Europa League compared to playing Europa Conference League compared to the Europa League. However, it's worth noting also that does exclude the money earned from winning the Europa League Conference League, because the actual time period was the 31st of May. That money, which is a few million quid, I believe, is wrapped up in this season's money, because it will start from July the 1st, and obviously we played the final in June rather. Sorry, June the 1st and June. You know what I mean. We made also the player investment in the summer of 2022 also had a detrimental effect to our figures for last season. Again, the financial period is from the 1st of June 2022. And also we spent almost £200 million in that particular year. So it means we've grown the transfer. We spent about 65 million quid more than we did the previous year, which led to a loss before tax of around 80 million quid. And we'll go through that in a bit. Ticket revenues were down by about 300 grand. It's just below about 41 million quid for ticket revenues. And again, that's playing, the likes of the Europa Conference League sides rather than the Europa League sides. Now, so that's sort of the main sort of reasonings why. It's not doesn't read terrible news, in all honesty, because as I said, with the thinking about the league position, you can see why there's always a prioritization on the Premier League, because that had basically an effect. If we'd finished, say, 7th last year, or similar to last year as the previous year in terms of the Premier League, we would have probably we would have surpassed our turnover from the previous year, I would imagine. But also we do have the ECL win going into this month's books, or this year's books, coming out. What else? Let's have a look. What's gone up and down? Let's have a look. Our runners and riders. In terms of what's gone up, commercial revenue's gone up, and sponsorship's gone up slightly by about 400 grand to now 35 million quid. Retail Club Shop has gone down. It fell to about 12, just under 13 million quid. TV revenue was the biggest drop. It's dropped from, as you said, it's last year or this year that's been reported, £147.6 million from the previous year, which was 163. And part of that reason was because we were not doing so well in the Premier League. So about a 10% drop, which is significant, and obviously finishing considerably lower than the previous year, roughly around 2 million quid a place. Wages have gone up slightly, only slightly, from 135.7 the previous year to 136.8. So only a sort of a million, 1.1 million increase in that. In terms of not just that's the player wages, in terms of Lady Brady, her annual pay packet has dropped. Can buy it to from 2.2 million to 1.4 for rolling up, mostly due to a bonus she received in the previous season. And so how that all sort of falls out, so to speak, in terms of player registrations and stuff like that, we've got a situation where we have around 4.7 million player registrations up to May 2023 over short and long term, and then we've got a further 12.6 made payable on contingent of certain future events. We also delayed payment on the player loan of Alex Kroll, which is about 430 grand, which we paid an interest on. That's been settled now because obviously that was delayed due to the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. So in terms of operating profit and things like that, because obviously that's very important for what we're talking about. Let me take off that thing. There we go. Operating profit was 48.4 million. Transfer payments 65 million, which meant we took one off the other, a loss of 18 million quid. Also, we did pay 3.94 million pounds back to the LLDC, and that was the windfall from the Danny Kredinsky coming on board as a second highest shareholder. So that's 27%. Meant we had to pay back some money to LLDC. Now, obviously, big things. Obviously, we paid off our 55 million pounds loan to the MSD Holdings, and we opened a 40 million pound overdraft. It's ridiculous when you talk about it, isn't it? 40 million pound overdraft for Barclays Bank, of which we had an interest charge of almost £1 million from MSD, but we do that regularly with sort of borrowing on the next year's TV money because we know that's coming in. But FFP is what we want to know about, isn't it? FFP. Where are we on FFP? Because that's something we've been banged on the head with a lot recently. And obviously this is only looking at FFP because basically UEFA's FFP allowance allows you to basically have 80% allowance for your wages, transfers and agent fees for the next season. So our turnover was 236.7 million quid. So FFP means that we can spend we could have spent 189.2 million pounds on that. Obviously the wages 136.8, slightly up by £1 million. Agents fees and transfer fees, in terms of what's left, obviously that takes into account ins and outs, so to speak. So it's 65.3 million. So in essence, we have notionally exceeded this at 202.1 million. So we obviously are. So on paper, 189 we can spend. We spent 202 million. However, we are, as part of FFP, allowed to exclude things like non-playing staff and coaching staff's wages off that, plus virtue of spending on things like infrastructure, community projects, the academy. women's football, training facilities. So that brings it back within the FFP budget allowed by UEFA. Obviously, there's the FFP in terms of the 3 years, in terms of losses, but an 18 million quid loss means that I'll have to go back and look at the previous 2 years because it's on a 3-year rolling basis. But it means that, as Moyes said in his press conference, it looks like we'll have to sell before we can buy. But we knew that was the case. The thing about football is you're always a year back, so we're always a year behind. So we've got what we can spend now, but we don't necessarily know what we could have spent until we see the accounts for the next year. And so that's where we are at the moment. So the main headlines are a profit about 7% down. So not a profit, a turnover about 7% down from last year. But the majority of the reasoning by that is our poor Premier League positioning. But also, as I said, it's worth taking into account that we haven't included in this set of accounts, hasn't included the Europa Conference League win, the actual final, as well. So it's not that bad. It's not that bad. We knew there was going to be a slight loss anyway because of the league position, and that's a real sort of importance. That's why it does seem that we prioritise the league wherever possible because of the effect it can have on the business. And as you can see, 16 million quid down. We were 7.7 places down from the previous year, about 2 million quid a place. It's about 14 million quid here or there. Take a little bit off, a little bit there, plus the extra for the Europa Conference League. We'd have pretty much been on par from last year. That's not including, that's just turnover. That's not including all the extra wages and stuff like that on top. But in terms of turnover, that's how it all sort of falls out. I'm sure Sean's going to do a big piece about it. I'm sure Kieran Maguire's going to do a big piece about it. But I just thought I'd bring you just the headline facts in terms of the actual release of the reports. But anyway, we should have Irish Tommy on tonight doing a late show. Keep an eye on that. That'll be fun. It'll be full of beans after beating Arsenal. And we'll have a few videos coming over the weekend as we prepare for the Brighton game. Take care. Stay safe. Stay warm. Stay humble. Keep the faith, my friends. And come on, you bloody Irons.